Well, Albedo have the distinction of being the first crane prize figure in my collection to be rated special or S rank. It's going to be close as she has one arguable flaw that could yet hold her back. Hello and welcome back to my channel. As you can very well guess by now, today I'll be checking out one of my favorite pre-painted figure product lines, namely FuRyu BiCute Bunnies. It's a fairly recent release as this bunny figure of Albedo from the Overlord light novel and anime series became available only in mid-June of this year. I'm really excited to take a closer look at this bunny costume version of Albedo as I've been impressed by the promotional images on FuRyu's website. So let's unbox her now and see if the hype meets expectations. What caught my eye instantly was how big the FuRyu BiCute Bunnies box has gotten compared with previous releases in my collection. To give you an idea of what I mean, the box containing Albedo in a bunny suit measures a whopping 31 centimeters in height by 13 centimeters in width and length. It's roughly 5 to 5 centimeters taller and 2 centimeters wider than previous boxes. Such a large box translates naturally into an opportunity which FuRyu took with both hands to display a close-up view of Albedo from Overlord, albeit with only a teasing glimpse of her stocking and bunny ears. Then there's of course the obligatory front view of the entire figure, in which all of Albedo's black stockings and bunny ears can be seen, followed by a full view of Albedo from the back, this time showcasing her intricately sculpted hair. Finally, at the back of the box is an extreme close-up of Albedo, whereby her facial details, among others, is clearly visible. And as usual, right at the top of the box is the BiCute Bunnies logo design, as well as a cursive name of the character, namely Albedo. Now that we've gotten a look at the box art, let me just remove the bubble-wrapped contents from the box so that we can move on to the unwrapping process. And as usual, I'm going to hold off on the commentary while I remove the parts making up this Albedo bunny costume figure from her protective bubble wrap. But I'm going to change it up a bit by leaving the unwrapping process running in real time and not fast forwarding it like I usually do, as you can always skip right ahead to the next section using the timestamps I've provided, if you find this ASMR-like section of the video boring. I say this without any intention to hyperbole. That is, the BiCute Bunnies version of Albedo from Overlord is by far the largest pre-painted figure I've seen so far that has come out from the budget crane price category. But size alone doesn't even begin to describe what's so impressive about this FuRyu BiCute Bunnies figure of Albedo. Where do I even begin? Well, in this big picture, once overview of Albedo, Perhaps I can draw your attention to the stunning complexity inherent in this figurine. For example, she is one of the very few budget price figures with natural looking hair. I love the way individual locks of her hair remain fairly distinct from one another, and I especially love the way some strands of her hair are wrapped over her right arm, not to mention that iconic twirl of hair right at the top. From her arm-length gloves with frills, to her collar tie, strapless bunny costume and black stockings, to the details on her head, like the way her tongue looks like it has been molded independently from her mouth, as well as the nicely textured horns to either sides of her head. All these details highlight how each section looks like a separate entity that has been individually sculpted and painted before being put together as a whole, thus adding significant depth and complexity to the figure. And that separation of tongue and mouth I had mentioned earlier looks so much better than the usual line or blob of paint that we get on budget figures. The star and focus of every FuRyu BiCute Bunnies figure is inevitably going to be the version of bunny costume worn by each character in this product lineup. And here, Albedo simply shines with a predominantly white bunny costume that has purplish shading as well as purple and gold accessories. And while her black stockings has an appropriate fine mesh look and feel to it, its seams have an unsightly thick black band look to it. Yet I'm willing to tolerate the unsightly seams if it means the stockings are a tight fit over her legs and are secure enough to not come loose later. On her feet are a simple pair of glossy white high heels with the seat black stockings tucked snugly and securely into the heels. That level of detail is an additional example of how each different item on the figure is clearly demarcated from one another, a level of separation that elevates the realistic feel and look of this FuRyu BiCute Bunnies figure of Albedo that would otherwise not exist because figures, especially budget ones, tend to look like a single molded piece, thus lacking both depth and complexity. Next, we have the only part of Albedo herself that did not come attached to her, namely a pair of white bunny ears. The only other piece which requires assembly is the display base that she'll stand on. That display base comprises a simple black round base with gold-colored line designs, as well as a gold-colored BiCute Bunnies logo. Now that we have gotten a quick close-up view of FuRyu's pre-painted prize figure of Albedo in a bunny costume, let's put on her bunny ears and attach her to the base so that we can view Albedo from all angles in more detail. Beginning with her bunny ears, which for Albedo's case comes in one single part for the pair of ears, which I'm not really a fan of. Reason being, it's hard to get the headband that the bunny ears are attached to sit flush with her hair. Although I'm more a fan of individual bunny ear parts that attach to a headband, which already comes pre-attached to the head, like how it was for the BiCute Bunnies version of Fujiwara Chika from the Kaguya-sama Love is War series, I guess it's not all that bad for Albedo's case, as the headband doesn't stand out too much from her head. So anyway, with her bunny ears headband safely atop her head, I'm going to now attach Albedo to her simple round base via the two pegs on her right foot into the holes on the said base, using my usual technique of pushing the figure downwards onto the base on top of a flat sturdy surface, for example my work table you see here. From the casual once-over of Albedo earlier, I'm genuinely excited to see if she's good enough to be the first special ranked pre-painted prize figure. So let's get on with the detailed look of this bunny costume figure of Albedo now. Usually a pre-painted scale figure from the crane prize figure category will come with its inevitable flaw or imperfection that usually marks it out as a budget-friendly piece. And while there are promising signs from the earlier once-over of Albedo that she has potentially bucked this trend, she is by no means perfect, which may yet prevent her from being the highest rated budget figure in my collection to date. Before I address the elephant in the room, and fans of Overlord might have probably guessed what I'm getting at, let me first unequivocally state that I'm in no doubt this is an excellent figure that has transcended the category it's pigeonholed in due to its price point. Standing at 30 centimeters in height, the bunny version of Albedo already had significant shelf presence by size alone. So when you then take into account her impressive sculpt and paintwork quality, I was simply blown away and failed to notice what she was missing. Can you guess by now what I'm referring to? Albedo is a demoness that's well known for a pair of huge black feathered wings which protrudes from her back to envelop most of her legs. And as you can see, this version of Albedo is missing her iconic wings. Yet for the longest time, I actually had not noticed this aberration on FuRyu's part, for I was too busy oohing and eyeing at the figure's incredible details that I was not expecting, which is already saying much, as I always have high expectations for the FuRyu BiCute Bunnies lineup. For example, textures on the bunny version of Albedo looked both appropriate and of extremely high quality, from the shine of her polished ebony horns to the matte skin tones and glossy leather-like white bunny costume. The latter two even have paint shading applied on them, while her hair has highlight painted, all of which I'll elaborate on later. And what's a FuRyu BiCute Bunnies figure without the customary real stocking-like material being used to cover her legs, of which is evident here. It was only when I was thinking really hard on what could possibly prevent the bunny costume Albedo from being the highest ranked crane prize figure in my collection that it finally dawned on me that she was missing her wings. That and the rather thick seams on her stockings are the only obstacles that can potentially prevent a special rating or S rank. So let's delve into her details to see if Albedo can rise above these issues to claim her throne. Let's start at the top, shall we? Albedo's bunny ears are nothing special, but they are simple and mesh well together with the rest of her uniform. Her horns look fairly realistic for what they are, and while they aren't as nicely sculpted as the ones on the Taito Artistic Masterpiece Plus version of Albedo, in a way I get that, as here there is a balance to be struck so that the horns do not overwhelm the bunny ears visually, and here they don't. And in terms of likeness to her animated equivalent, the excellent facial features means bunny costumed Albedo scores highly in this regard. Painted details of her eyes, the blush on her cheeks and her mouth are all excellently done, especially her mouth, which looks like her tongue had been sculpted and painted separately, something I've never seen on a budget figure before. Details on her eyes are also very accurate and well painted, and they look like the yellow cat-like eyes that is seen in the anime. As for her hair, it has a semi-gloss sheen to its surface, as well as some purple highlights painted on selected areas. But what's really nice about her hair is actually the way it has been sculpted to flow more naturally. Individual locks of hair can be seen running down the front of her face as well as down her back. A nice touch by FuRyu was the way they made some of her locks of hair drape naturally over her right arm. And then of course there's the iconic curl of hair at the top of her head that's a perennial part of her hairstyle. Speaking of the arm that her hair is draped over, one fantastic detail I want to point out is the fact that her fingernails have been painted exceptionally well. As you might know, a pet peeve of mine is unpainted nails on figures, so I'm extremely happy that's not the case for BiCute Bunnies Albedo. Meanwhile, Albedo's big bosom look has been tastefully done here, accentuated by the design of her bunny costume and the sculpt of her upper body, as well as strategically placed shadows via the application of what looks like orangey pink hues on the molded-in fair skin tone colors. Skin tone shading was also applied to her underarms and areas where exposed skin are in contact next to her bunny costume, which itself has been given layers of purplish paint shading. As someone who enjoys painting miniature figures, I can't stress enough how difficult it is to shade white clothing and make it look both natural and good. So I was gobsmacked to see FuRyu pull this off on her white bunny costume, on a mass-produced budget-friendly crane prize figure, no less. Moreover, Albedo's voluptuous and shapely physique was also accentuated by the subtly applied shading on her bunny costume and of course by the sculpt of her costume as mentioned earlier. In fact, the paintwork even extends to her long hair, in which the same purplish hues found on her bunny costume as shadows were now used as highlights on her black hair. What FuRyu achieves in doing so is to unify the overall color scheme of the figure by the subtle and vivid use of purple against predominantly neutral hues, subtle in the case of shadows on her bunny costume and highlights of her hair, and vivid in the case of her purple tie. And then there's the primary gimmick of FuRyu BiCute Bunnies product lineup in general, which is the fine fishnet stockings that forms an essential part of the bunny costume ensemble. While I've become somewhat blasé to the FuRyu BiCute Bunnies figures wearing material that looks very much like real-life fine fishnet stockings, that's more a consequence of having collected many such type of figures rather than a slight to the inherent quality of said stockings. In Albedo's case, the seams of her stockings were a tad too thick for my liking. But thankfully, the unsightly seams were tucked away behind her legs and were largely out of sight when the figure was viewed from the front. This and the fact that the stockings was nicely and securely fitted over both her legs went a long way towards mitigating my disappointment with the thick seams. And even though Albedo is attached to the display base with only one foot, she's extremely stable and secure, helped largely by a center of gravity that's close to the center of her body. I've been nothing short of impressed by almost every aspect of this FuRyu BiCute Bunnies figure of Albedo from Overlord. Her paintwork as well as sculpt quality is simply marvelous and is unlike anything I've seen coming from the budget-friendly crane price category. While the fine fishnet stocking stick seams are a genuine imperfection in an otherwise near flawless build, it's sufficiently out of sight when viewed from the front that it becomes more of a I know it's there but I don't like it, even if it's hidden from view, rather than an actual visual distraction in reality. So that leaves only one potential issue that can hold Albedo back from achieving the highest ever rating for a budget-friendly crane price figure, namely the missing pair of black feathered wings that's iconic to the character from the Overlord series. The long and short of it is, no, it can't. But of course, an explanation is in order. Initially, I had felt it to be an unforgivable omission on FuRyu's part to leave out Albedo's iconic pair of wings. Yet the longer I dwelt on it, the more I realized I was judging her by the standards of a more expensive mid or upper tier scale painted figure category, when she was more of a lower budget to mid-tier figure. It then became obvious, to me at least, that to expect this crane price figure of Albedo to maintain its paintwork and sculpt quality and to have it include a huge pair of her iconic black wings was not only unreasonable but better suited for the much pricier upper tier 1/4 or 1/7 scale painted figures. So judging on paintwork and sculpt quality alone, bearing in mind her price point in the pre-painted figure industry, I'm giving the FuRyu BiCute Bunnies figure of Albedo from Overlord a rating of Special or S rank. Albedo in a bunny costume, at least FuRyu's version of her, is an excellent pre-painted figure that I'm absolutely delighted to have in my collection. I wholeheartedly recommend that she be added to yours, whether you are a fan of Overlord or bunny costume figures in general. Her overall pose is simple and natural and have enough hints of S-shaped curves that prevent her from looking too static, even though she is essentially in a standing pose. While the dynamism of her pose is elevated when you view her from the back, due largely to the lovely sculpt of her hair and its natural-looking S-shaped curves, it's largely hidden from view when displayed, and the figure is then viewed from the front. But that means the thick seams of the stockings is hidden too, so I guess you can't win them all. Taken as a whole, Albedo's pose is advantageous as it means she isn't going to take up a lot of real estate, width and length-wise in your display shelf, despite her significantly large size, though you would need enough space to accommodate her height, if not width. So there you have it, the highest rated price figure in my collection, the FuRyu BiCute Bunnies figure of Albedo. While I have similarly rated figures in Asuka and Mari from Revolve, they are upper tier 1/7 scale pre-painted figures, not budget price ones. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel, 4-Eyed Monster Miniatures. See you again soon. Until then, be well and be happy.